This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Heather Sells. One Senate Republican is ready to do whatever it takes to find out what really happened in what's being called a bureaucratic coup. Former FBI Acting Director Andrew McCabe made explosive claims in an interview Sunday night about the Justice Department. Our Mark Martin joins us now in the CBN newsroom with more. Mark?
Heather, in a 60 Minutes interview on CBS, McCabe says top Justice Department officials discussed using the 25th Amendment to remove President Donald Trump. He also says Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein even talked about wearing a wire in the White House. Senator Lindsey Graham says he's not ruling out issuing subpoenas if that means getting to the bottom of what went on inside the FBI after the firing of former Director James Comey.
I promise your viewers the following, that we will have a hearing about who's telling the truth. I do know there was a lot of monkey business about FISA warrants being issued against Carter Page, about dossiers coming from Russia that were unverified. Mr. Mueller is going to look at the Trump campaign, and I'm going to do everything I can to get to the bottom of the Department of Justice.
McCabe told 60 Minutes that Rosenstein was actively seeking ways to oust the president. It was McCabe's first sit-down interview since being fired from the FBI. He also said Rosenstein suggested wearing a wire during his meetings with Trump.
A discussion of the 25th Amendment was simply Rod raised the issue and discussed it with me in the context of thinking about how many other cabinet officials might support such an effort. He said, I never get searched when I go into the White House. I could easily wear a recording device. They wouldn't know it was there.
McCabe, who is releasing a book, says the DOJ had good reasons to be suspicious.
If the president committed obstruction of justice, fired the director of the FBI to negatively impact or to shut down our investigation of Russia's malign activity, you have to ask yourself, why would a president of the United States do that?
President Trump reacted through Twitter, calling McCabe a disgrace. The Department of Justice called McCabe's account inaccurate and factually incorrect. And Heather, Rosenstein denies taking part in extended conversations about the 25th Amendment. Back to you.
Thanks, Mark. And Gary Lane now joins us with more. And Gary, you've been following this Russia investigation scandal for a while. Break it down. What is it about McCabe's revelation that has shocked so many people?
Well, it isn't that shocking when you remember back in September, Rod Rosenstein was called to the White House by President Trump because the New York Times had a revelation that he said he would wear a wire to the White House to entrap Trump and use the 25th Amendment against him at that time. So in that sense, it isn't that shocking. But I think what is surprising, Heather, is the fact that this was brought out in an interview with more detail. And that is surprising.
Mm-hmm. And what about his timing? Do you trace it back to the book that he's releasing? Is there another reason?
The book is part of it. Of course, you've got to have something sensational to sell books, and that's part of the reason. But also, I think McCabe wants to salvage his reputation because, after all, the Inspector General had a report that said he had a conflict of interest and had leaked information to the press about the Clinton Foundation and also the email investigations that he was a part of, Heather, at a time when his wife was running for the U.S. Senate and had received campaign donations through Terry McAuliffe, the former governor of Virginia, who was a close ally of the Clintons. So there was a conflict of interest there, and he wants to salvage his reputation as well.
So he is saying there's real concerns at the FBI and DOJ about the obstruction of justice when Trump fired Comey.
Yes.
How do you view those concerns?
Well, obstruction of justice legally, the second part of the Constitution, Article 2 of the Constitution, allows the president to hire and fire whomever he chooses in the executive branch. That would include the Attorney General. It would include the FBI director. Real obstruction comes in, Heather, if there's payment of monies, if there is urging of witnesses to lie, not to tell the truth. There's no evidence that that occurred. Never any evidence in the past that any president has done that, has actually obstructed justice legally. Now, politically, it can be used against him in any impeachment proceedings.
What should we look for next in all this? What are you expecting?
Well, you know, Matt Whitaker Before he stepped aside as Attorney General, he was acting Attorney General. Now we have a new one, William Barr. Before Barr was sworn in, Whitaker said it looks like Mueller's investigation, Russia investigation, is about to be wrapped up. So we can look forward to that coming. But the Democrats say they'll continue the investigation in the House of Representatives. As for McCabe, I think, and Rosenstein, more information coming out. You haven't heard the last from them. And the politicization of the Department of Justice and the FBI.
It's a lot to keep up with.
That's ongoing.
Yes. Gary Lane, thanks for your time.
Sure.
Well, hundreds of protesters have returned to the streets of the Haitian capital as the Caribbean's poorest nation endures another day of violence. Protesters burned American flags and they chanted, "Down with America, long live Putin." Deadly protests have engulfed the island nation since early February as residents grow increasingly angry about soaring inflation and government corruption. Haitians are also demanding the resignation of their president following charges of economic mismanagement. Scores of missionaries working in Haiti managed to flee this past weekend as violent riots gripped parts of the capital city, stranding them for days. The U.S. State Department is telling American citizens not to travel to Haiti. Gloria Rapaco with Love and Hope Ministries joins us now. She and her family are missionaries to Haiti and had to flee. Gloria, this is also your homeland, and I know it's difficult to watch. Tell us about what you saw and why you left.
We've been in Haiti. We went back in August. And since we came back, there's been a little bit unrest. But for February 7th, which is the day of the dedication of the president, the people decided to have a protest. And so we were advised to stay home because the protests can be very violent. So we prepared. So on February 7th, there was a big protest. What we thought was going to be a day protest ended up going on more than 9 days. So from February 7th, we kept being home and home. The people came out in the street and just burning tires, blowed rocks. We couldn't go out. And they were destroying stores. The country was out of control.
It sounds horrible. Tell us about how you made the decision to actually leave Haiti.
The reason why we left, we came to a point where there were no fuel in the country. So we were getting 15 to 20-minute electricity per day. They lock us in, and then they gave us 2 hours, or there will be like 4 hours to go to the grocery store until noon. And once it's noon, they close the store. So we could not find water, electricity, and fuel, whether for your car or for your generator.
Gloria, what do you see as what is behind all this violence? Where is it coming from?
There are so many rumors, but we think the main thing is that they want the president out. The people are tired because of the inflation in the country. Things have gotten so expensive. So the people, the mass, being fueled by other politicians, that's what it said. They came out because they are tired, they are hungry, and the president said he's not leaving. He will complete his full term, which he has 3 more years. So the people they said they're not going to stop until the president leaves, and the president is not leaving. So today, they're still going on at it.
Gloria, how are you seeing the church doing in the midst of all this violence?
They were very intimidated at the beginning because the first weekend of the protest, the church, they told the people if they start churches, they were going to come and pull people out to go in the street. So most churches were closed. I believe the church is praying, but everybody is so confused now, but we are praying that they will rise up. They did call for a prayer at one point for all the churches, but people didn't go out because they were afraid to go out in the streets.
So a really challenging time when people don't even feel like they can leave their home. What are your plans at this point? Do you have any thoughts on when you and your family might return there?
We don't know yet because we're waiting for the situation to settle. And because once the country comes like that, foreigners are a target. And for missionaries, we are a target. It was advised for most of us to leave. Most missionaries with their children, who have children, leave.
Wow. Tell us, what are your thoughts on how we can pray for Haiti and the people at this time?
My first prayer request, as you asked the question before, that the church will rise in Haiti. and cry out to the Lord, because the people are so afraid. They need a place, a shelter, and the church has to be that shelter. At the same time, the Christians are so, when you're hungry, you're tired, you don't have electricity, sometimes it's hard to focus on the spiritual as you focus on your physical needs. So we need to pray for God to provide for them in the midst of it all, and then to strengthen them from the inside so they can rise up and fight for their country spiritually.
That's really beautiful. Well, thank you for your ministry there. Thank you for your time now, Gloria Rapaka.
Thank you for the opportunity.
In other news, Poland has canceled its involvement in an important conference in Jerusalem this week after controversial Holocaust remarks were made by a top Israeli official. In an interview on Israeli TV station Sunday, acting Israeli Foreign Minister Israel Katz said that Poles, quote, sucked anti-Semitism from their mother's milk, citing something once said by a former Israeli prime minister whose father was murdered by Poles. The comment comes after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was misquoted, saying the Polish nation is guilty of cooperating with Nazis. The head of Poland's prime minister's office told State Radio Monday that Katz's comments were disgraceful. Pope Francis called on the faithful Sunday to pray for this week's upcoming sex abuse summit at the Vatican. The Pope has summoned bishops and the heads of Episcopal conferences worldwide to Rome to discuss the protection of minors in the church. The summit comes after cases across the world revealed decades of abuse by priests and cover-ups by church leaders. One survivor of clergy abuse says he has little patience for the difficulties that Francis might be facing with these revelations.
He's facing resistance. Let me tell you what it was like to have to try to resist that priest when I was a boy who was sexually assaulting me. So whatever difficulty him or discomfort this is for anybody in the papal palace, it's nothing compared to what survivors have had to undergo.
The summit will run Thursday through Sunday. And coming up, as the tragedy that is Venezuela reaches new levels of misery, nobody is quite sure who is in charge of the country. We'll have a report on the ground coming up.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children.
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I Wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
The weeks-long political showdown in Venezuela is worsening that country's humanitarian crisis. The U.S. and dozens of other nations have called for Nicolas Maduro to step down, recognizing Juan Guaido as the country's interim president. Maduro not only refuses to budge, but is also blocking international relief aid from entering the country. More than 3 million Venezuelans have fled their homeland, and many of those left inside are starving and living in devastating conditions. American military aircraft have been arriving here over the past week, delivering tons of humanitarian aid intended to ease the suffering of these Venezuelans. But troops loyal to Nicolas Maduro have so far blocked the shipments from entering their country. Over the weekend, a congressional delegation from the U.S. also arrived at the border to assess the situation, accompanied by the Colombian ambassador to the United States. And CBN News contributor Chuck Colton is on the ground following the story from the Colombian-Venezuelan border. Chuck, you've been there for a few days. What have you seen in terms of these attempts to deliver relief to the Venezuelans?
Well, as you said, the United States military is shipping it's something like 235 tons of aid that they brought in so far, and it's being stored in warehouses right on the border, and they're ready to take it into Venezuela and help the people as soon as the government of Venezuela allows them to do so. But of course, that's the rub, because Nicolas Maduro says there's nothing wrong in Venezuela, nobody's starving, we don't have any problems here, and we don't need your aid. And the new president, the interim president, Juan Guaido, is the one that's calling for the aid. Now, this is heading for a showdown. What we're going to see on next Saturday, this coming Saturday, the 23rd, Juan Guaido has signed up about 200,000 people as volunteers to cross the border into Colombia, pick up the aid in bags, and carry it back across the border into direct contradiction to the will of Nicolas Maduro. The people that we're talking to coming out of Venezuela are telling us universally, I mean, we haven't found one person yet that hasn't said, we're starving, there's nothing to eat. I've received some photographs from a guy that I met yesterday from the hospital right across the border in Venezuela, and they're absolutely horrific. The hospital there looks worse than the one that I saw a week ago in Syria when I was over there, and it's very, very bad.
Chuck, this is really an incredible attempt to try and break things up with this showdown, this literal walking across with aid. What is your sense of how it might go down? What are you hearing?
You know, in 2014, Maduro had closed this border between Colombia and Venezuela, and he had troops stationed along the border, wouldn't let anybody cross at all. But the people got so desperate that eventually about 500 mothers dressed all in white and came up and confronted the troops that were closing the border and said, you can shoot us if you want, but we're going to cross this border right now. And of course, the troops they didn't do that. They let them pass. And that led to the opening of this border, where now 40,000 people a day are crossing into Cucuta, Colombia, to go shopping, to be able to try to get any kind of food. There's a lot of aid here from churches, Sam's Purse and others that are here helping the people, medical care and that sort of thing. And so they're trying to replay that scenario writ large. They're going to get 200,000 people dressed in white, and they're going to confront the troops that are blocking the border, and they're going to tell them, hey, you can't shoot all of us.
All right, we just have a short time left here, but I do want to ask you, the president is giving a speech today threatening the country's military leaders, saying he knows where they've hidden money throughout the world. Might that kind of pressure break things up at all?
Oh, I think so. Right now, that is the only thing keeping Maduro in power, is the fact that the generals that he has essentially bought off are still loyal to him. And the only reason they're loyal to him is because of money. Now, if the U.S. government was smart, I don't know if they're doing this or not, they may be, they would have the CIA in there offering the generals more money to transfer sides, because all you need is one to transfer over to Juan Guaido, and you're going to see a complete destruction of this house of cards that Maduro calls his government.
Well, incredible situation going on there. Chuck Colton, thanks for your reporting.
Thank you.
Still ahead, how a new museum will highlight the positive impact gospel music has had on the lives of African Americans and beyond. That story when we come back.
Parents, the Superbook Bible app is a great way to get your child reading the Bible, because in today's busy world, we can use some help. The free Superbook Bible app has fun stuff your kids will love. They'll have a blast learning the Bible, playing great games, watching cool videos, discovering heroes in the Bible. They'll have fun while they learn God's Word. The Superbook Kids Bible app, available now.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Discover the I wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I wills of God, the latest teaching from Pat Robertson.
Chicago is known as the birthplace of gospel music. Its influence on the Windy City and other musical genres spans more than 80 years, and a new museum is set to highlight the positive impact of gospel music on the lives of African Americans and beyond. Charlene Aaron has the story.
Gospel music is one of the most significant components of Chicago's musical history, and a new museum dedicated to gospel music is sure to keep that tradition alive.
If you see my Savior, tell him that you saw me.
Thomas Dorsey first helped popularize black gospel music in the 1930s. The son of a Baptist preacher, he combined shouts of praise and emotional fervor with a contemporary style. Whether swaying with gospel choirs, tapping along with quartets, or simply raising hands to the rhythm of soul-stirring songs, gospel music can be seen and heard throughout Black America. Pilgrim Baptist Church in Chicago is ground zero for gospel music, the place where Dorsey first introduced the sound.
Chicago has been known as the birthplace of gospel music, primarily because when the Great Migration took place in 1926 and blacks came from Mississippi, areas like that, to Chicago, it was a time when they had all of the blues and the R&B places on the South Side, and that's where the majority of the churches were. It was a city within a city. And the Thomas Dorsey and that sound in Pilgrim grew.
Don Jackson, founder of the Stellar Gospel Music Awards, is the mind and power behind the new National Museum of Gospel Music. He sees gospel music as the foundation of faith for many in the black community.
We go to church more than any other segment of our population because that's what we need, those positive messages for the single moms, poverty-stricken areas. And what drives those churches mostly is the inspirational music that happens to be gospel music. One thing I like about it is in the music itself, it doesn't apologize for using the name of Jesus.
The building has its own story. It began as a synagogue, then Pilgrim, and in 2006 was destroyed by a fire. The shell still stands and will be transformed into the museum. Jackson believes a museum like this belongs in Chicago.
There was Pilgrim. We had a natural connection to Thomas Dorsey. And then we had the connection to the gospel music community.
The new museum will honor gospel music legends such as Mahalia Jackson, James Cleveland, and Shirley Caesar. It will also offer a research and listening library, an auditorium, and several interactive features.
We have more video on gospel music artists than anybody. So we're going to use that. But once they come into the theater and we have a bit where we show the background, those are the kind of interactive displays and exhibits that we will have, enough to just rock you, where you don't want to leave. You know, when you just coming from there, you just come from there singing.
The National Museum of Gospel Music is set to open in the fall of 2020. Charlene Aaron, CBN News, Chicago.
After the break, it's President's Day, how we as Christians can make a difference to our nation's leaders as we celebrate this national holiday.
When you give, smiles grow bigger. When you care, homes are happier. When you comfort, the hurt goes away. When we all come together to love, miracles happen.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes and Google Play now.
Today is President's Day, a day to honor all our nation's leaders that have helped make America what it is today. And we want to remind you that our president, as well as our senators, our governors, and our council members, they all need our prayers. The Bible tells us to pray for those in authority in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 and through 2. And they read, I exhort, therefore, that first of all, supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings, and for all that are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and honesty. And that's all for today. We hope that you will join us next time. Have a great day.